So episode 5 begins with another flashback of the WLF. The mom from Ted enters the room doing her best impression of Sarah Connor. After meeting with one of her lieutenants, it's revealed that they needed to seal off the basement to their hospital due to an outbreak of spores. Sarah Connor then says the hospital is a resource they can't afford to lose. Which, is that true? I mean, sure, the hospital has plenty of resources inside of it, but it's not like the building itself has that much value. Wouldn't it just be safer to simply move the necessary equipment out of the hospital and into a different building instead of housing your sick and wounded in a place that could easily get them infected? At this point, the characters have no idea how spores spread. The only information they have is that it's in the air, which makes sealing off the floor seem a little redundant. Unless you could somehow make it airtight, which pretty much would be impossible while working with a decrepit, post-apocalyptic building. The lieutenant then says that the outbreak hasn't spread through the vents, however, there isn't a reason for this not to happen later. So it's odd that these characters aren't treating this situation with more severity. So anyway, Sarah Connor decides that this situation is permanently solved and says that they will essentially keep this information secret and will only tell the people who need to know. But why? Why would you keep that a secret? This is a serious safety risk for your entire community, and you're covering it up for no reason. Hiding this information could only lead to more people getting infected by them wandering down to the lower levels. Surely, preparing your forces for a new type of infection would be your top priority. And are you expecting people not to ask questions about why part of the hospital is sealed off? People will begin to talk about why the doors are barred shut, and will certainly want to know why.
That was the plan.
Not a great plan.
Again, moving the hospital to a different building would be a simple solution. People are the main resource here, people with medical expertise. And all you're doing is putting their lives in danger for no reason. I'm forgetting that every character in this show has the IQ of an egg salad, so this is all starting to make sense now. Also, am I allowed to ask why all these survivor groups are being led by 50-year-old women?
No!
No? No? Okay. So anyway, we then cut forward to Dina, who is listening in on the WLF radio in order to find out where the patrols are so her and Ellie can sneak into their base. This leads to some more girl-on-girl flirtation, which is totally natural considering that they're on a revenge mission. Seriously, it's insane the sheer lack of fucks Ellie seems to give about Joel's death. At least the games had the decency to make Ellie this miserable, hate-filled monster, which was appropriate considering that she had just watched her father get beaten to death in front of her. Show Ellie, on the other hand, acts like she is in a totally different story. Look how she just barrels into the room, happy and cheerful. This is clearly the face of a girl that's been traumatized. And of course, she's just letting Dina do all the work to find Abby. There's absolutely zero sense of urgency here. So Ellie then tells Dina that she's gonna go explore the rest of the theater. Which, wait, what? You haven't done that yet? How have you not secured this place already? You have both slept here, but neither one of you thought it was a good idea to explore the entire building before cozying up to each other for the night? There could be a horde of zombies in the next room and neither character would have known. It's not like this is some secure building either, it's a fucking theater.
What the fuck?
How have these characters survived this long in the zombie apocalypse? Anyway, so Ellie fucks off to go play guitar and be sad about Joel for a minute. Nice to see that they're willing to give a few seconds of every episode to remind the audience why Ellie is still doing all of this. Because at this point, you wouldn't be insane to think that this is just some lesbian rom-com.
So, we're having a baby.
Ha! Gay!
So Dina comes in and tells Ellie that she's found a way to the wolf's base. She has apparently done this by simply listening in to their radio chatter, where they openly talk about troop movements. Dina theorizes that they do this because of the Scars, who don't use complicated technology, and so there's no reason to hide information over the radio. Wow. Okay, so we can assume that this little bit of exposition is accurate, of course, as it's so painfully idiotic that the writers must have thought it was clever. Why in the world would you not try to at least have coded conversations when you're talking about vital military operations? Even if you could assume your enemies don't use radios, there are other dangerous people that could still listen in and fuck with you. Exhibit A. It's also very strange considering that this is a military faction, when armies use coded language all the time.
Roger, Fox 4-6, dispatching our tear dog with a bazooka team. Out. Break. Tear dog 1-6, this is Razor 6 Able. Did you monitor Fox 4-6, over?
But whatever, I guess just don't think about it. So Dina and Ellie make a plan to sneak past the patrols by going through a big building that is full of infected. Yay for pregnant Dina. So after the two head out, they begin more romantic hijinks until they come across some more dead people. This gives Ellie the willies, and she for the first time seems to reconsider bringing pregnant Dina along for this revenge mission. I mean, for fuck's sake, it took you long enough to at least rethink this whole plan, you knuckle-dragging oaf. This is one of the few times that I could say that the second game actually did a better job at something. Game Ellie's reaction to Dina's pregnancy was so much more realistic to their situation.
We could have still turned back.
I didn't know. I wasn't sure, okay? I didn't want to be a burden.
Well, you're a burden now, aren't you?
I'm gonna be a dad.
God, this romance doesn't make any sense. First of all, how does Dina announcing that she is pregnant with the child of her ex-lover somehow lubricate the consummation of this relationship? It's not like this is Ellie's child. It's not a celebration of their baby. It's fucking Jessie's.
I mean, we and also, I guess, Jessie here.
But of course, Neil Druckmann would have us believe that Ellie is such a flag-waving lesbian that she would just naturally assume the role of fatherhood. Amazing. The fact that neither character treats this pregnancy as a huge problem actually makes them both morally corrupt people. I mean, sure, they don't mind risking the life of an unborn baby, which is still fucked. But Jessie, the father, might. He likely would be horrified if he knew that Dina was treating this revenge mission with more importance than protecting her own child. But what am I talking about? This is a Neil Druckmann production. Jessie will probably let Ellie be the dad and pat them both on the back for the whole thing. So getting back to it, Ellie begins to worry about Dina's safety. Dina then tells Ellie this long-ass story about how she killed her family's murderer when she was like 8 years old because, why not? This is all used as a pep talk to get Ellie back into revenge mode, because it's clear at this point she needs one. Dina then tells Ellie not to worry, because if she dies, it's on her, and it won't be Ellie's responsibility because she chose to come here. However, Dina then tells Ellie that it's her decision whether they keep going after Abby or return to Jackson, and that she'll do whatever Ellie thinks is best. That's not how responsibility works. You can't tell somebody that they're not at fault for your death, but then completely relinquish yourself of any decision making. Dina is completely putting her life in Ellie's hands here. Whatever happens to Dina will be a result of Ellie's choice.
I'm gonna kill myself!
Wow.
I'm going to kill myself, and it's your fault!
And can we talk for a minute about how these two characters are just walking down the middle of a street, having a full volume conversation in broad daylight, in the middle of enemy territory without a care in the world? There is a really cool scene in Season 3 of The Walking Dead where Rick and the gang go through a house with zero conversation. Nobody speaks, they only communicate with whistles, head nods, and signs. It showed the audience that the characters had become more experienced when dealing with the apocalypse, that they had adapted to the world that they were living in, because having a basic conversation could bring untold danger. So how can The Walking Dead, a show of much lower caliber than The Last of Us, completely put characters like Ellie and Dina to shame in like 3 minutes?
They're never gonna stop!
Endless trash!
Neither of these characters demonstrate a want or need to stay alive in a world that is completely hostile to them. And all this does is break the immersion of the story. It doesn't feel like these are two badass survivors because they don't act like it. They act like stumpy Zoomers walking through the set of a TV show.
Get the fuck out of here. You're done.
So Ellie and Dina make it to the building, and of course, they're surrounded by zombies and nearly die. But wouldn't you know it, the mother of all coincidences happen, as Jessie shows up to save them.
Well, that's just lazy writing.
Pretty surprising that they didn't manage to do this sooner, considering Ellie and Dina have been spending most of their time making googly eyes at each other. But whatever. Jessie then explains that he found them because he saw the map that Dina had left behind in the theater, with all of their plans on it. Wait, what the fuck? Why didn't they bring the map with them? It had the locations for all the patrols they were looking out for. Did Ellie and Dina memorize it before they left? Even if they had, there's still no reason to leave that kind of evidence lying around. What if one of the patrols had stumbled across the theater and decided to check it out? The WLF would have found out that someone was spying on them, and they would even know exactly where Dina and Ellie were going. But nope, don't worry about that either. They're just gonna leave it there on the table for anyone to find. Luckily, it was Jessie.
Son of a bitch!
So Jessie, Dina, and Ellie escape into the park to hide from the wolves, only to stumble across the scars. Dina is then randomly shot by an arrow, so Ellie can have a reason to go off on her own. Ellie then takes the opportunity to sneak into the WLF hospital that we saw in the flashback. We are then greeted with yet another astounding coincidence. Ellie finds Nora immediately.
Wow. Plot twist. Didn't see that coming.
Yep, the first person she comes across in the fucking hospital is one of the 5 people she's looking for. Is this show running off of sheer luck now? I mean, the Abby and Joel meetup was bad enough, but now you have 2 of these events happening in the same fucking episode? Well, geez, it's great that Ellie just so happened to run into the 2 people she needed for the plot to move forward. Ellie chases Nora around the hospital, shooting at her, and for some reason, only 2 people try to stop this. I mean, goddamn, isn't this the hospital that Sarah Connor said was so valuable? Where the fuck is all the security?
Fugazi, fugazi, it's a wazi, it's a woozy, it's a fairy dust. It doesn't exist.
So Nora falls through an elevator shaft to the level where all the spores are. Too bad nobody told her about what was down there, right? Ellie then catches up to Nora and beats her to death with a metal pipe. Then we get a cute little flashback of Joel and Ellie living together in Jackson. And that's the end of the episode. Well, aren't we glad that's over? Just one step closer to this season finally being thrown out into the garbage. I suppose that we should be grateful that we didn't get subjected to another Bella Ramsey solo, but besides that, everything was terrible. Who is this show for anymore? They're making the second game look like fucking Shakespeare by comparison. Nobody acts like real human beings, nobody has any chemistry or likability. It's all just regurgitated vomit being played over and over again. We got a gay teen romance mixed with a revenge-fueled apocalyptic thriller. And the 2 genres go as well together as a late-night martini and Bill Cosby. Next episode, we're finally going to bury Joel as the worst human being on the planet, while at the same time milking every second with Pedro Pascal because he is still the best part of this show despite him being dead. This show is terrible and it will only continue to get worse. So until then, enjoy the ridicule while you can, and I'll see you on the next one.